We have to set up a live stream webinar on my YouTube account, so that'll take just a second. They won't let you do all this until you're actually inside of Zoom.
Oh, okay.
And it redirects you to YouTube. A live stream webinar on my YouTube account. See, there we go.
Your internet connection. My internet just went flying down. What happened?
Once you're live streaming, it just kind of takes a little bit to kind of catch up with the broadband. It'll catch up in just a second. See, now it looks like you're good.
Right now, I can't find where you're at.
Oh, you'll just have to bring your browser forward. I think what happened was your browser went away on the back of your screen.
Okay. How do I do that?
I
got it.
You got it?
Okay.
Yep. All right.
All right.
All right. We've got it. Everybody's starting to come in. That's good. So we are live streaming on YouTube now. So I'm going to sync it up and let's go. It's going to hurt my hand to sync it. Will you sync it? Clap. Okay. Go right ahead. Literally clap. Okay. Namaste. Welcome, everyone. We're giving you a few minutes to come on in. I know we're doing this early this morning, but we're live on YouTube, and I'm excited to introduce you to the lovely light worker and musician, Shawn Gallaway. His songs are spreading the world right now and kind of taking it by a storm of love. He recently won the Global Peace Song of the Year Award.
Yeah, Global Peace Song Award in the folk category for peace.
In the folk category, yeah. And I've been listening to his music for a long time, but to have I Choose Love win an award and go global like this that's just my heart. I've been following you a long time, and I'm so excited that you won it. You completely deserve it. And there's such a story behind your music. And I invited you here because I wanted to share you with the world today and talk about this beautiful song and whatever else you want to talk about in relation to love and how this affects the human conscious collective and what you're bringing to it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for everything. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chime in and let everybody know about where this came from. And so how do we start? Where do you want to start?
Let's start with you. How did this song come about?
Well, I've been a singer-songwriter for many, many years. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee to get into music, and I got into the healing arts when I, first came to Nashville, not knowing, what that was all about or whatever. But someone said, go do this seminar and this will help you become a better songwriter. And so I did. And of course I got into all the challenges of cultural conditioning and religious upbringing and, all the wounding that I realized that was a part of who I was and, or part of my story anyway. But anyway, so I worked in country music, country commercial music for a little while, and it never really resonated with me. I was a little bit out of the box with that sort of thing. Music had to have a message for me. Yeah. So anyway, I started my healing journey and I started writing about my experiences in my own healing journey and what I was coming up within myself. And so when I Choose Love was created, I had finished my first CD and I did a whole CD on rites of passage for men. I got into doing a lot of healing work with men and understanding how lack of rites of passage in our world has really decimated the culture of men in a positive way, So 9/11 happened and I wrote this song 2 days after 9/11, which was to me, it was the biggest wake-up call humanity has ever had. And what I did, it was the feeling that was coming up for me. I sat there and watched the towers fell. I was sitting with my girlfriend at the time, and we were just, again, just deeply moved by it. And I picked up the guitar, and the way I process things is I write music, I write songs, So that song, I wrote it it was probably, half a day, most of it was done. And to me, it was the choice. It was the big choice. It's like the song is basically the awareness of, oh, I actually do have a choice of how I choose to respond or to be in the world and not react.
Right.
And so, there's nothing easier than when you look at something in terms of black and white. Well, that's loving and that's fear driven, and that's where the song sort of came from. So to me, it was the wake up call for humanity. We continue to create love in the world. We create a different outcome. We continue to use fear, and we're going to create a different outcome. And, a lot of people chose love for a very short period of time during that, which was fantastic. The good things about these kind of disasters is that people fall into each other's arms for a while. But, a lot of times people will then get into their fear and their reaction. And so that song, when I look back on our government and how we responded as a country to that, we created an abusive war that's been still moving on right now. Millions and millions of people affected or killed. The earth completely raped in some ways. That continues to happen. So I Choose Love was a statement for me that I had to make for myself. And now it's moved into the collective. And it was my way of saying, okay, what do you guys want to do? We have a choice to make, and, a lot of us in this movement of, the healing arts movement, consciousness raising or whatever, it's like we've all come to that place in our lives where, at some point you must make the choice to love yourself and heal. And for me, that was the global choice for the heart of humanity. How do you guys want to heal? Do you want to heal this? And this is 15 years ago now. So this song, in a lot of ways has stayed underground, but it's also afforded me a career in the music business, which has been kind of fun. Not kind of fun, it's been great, and people use it all over the place for helping them remember how to respond from a place of love, as opposed to getting into reaction and clobbering people and, creating mischief, stories, continuing, fear-based structures of control and power. Yeah. And so this helps, this just helps people maintain that consciousness. So that's where that song came from. And, and there was lots of, it's like I write songs and I have to live into them, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is constantly on my radar every day. How do I choose love today? What do I choose? Do I choose love in this moment? So it's something that just goes and goes and goes, and not easy. The hero's journey is not easy, but it's the thing to do now. I think we're to the point in our humanity where it's like, if we don't come together collectively to choose love and move our feet that way, we got some pretty big hurdles to overcome. And a song like this can help people and communities to reinforce their choice to be loving and kind in the world. And that doesn't mean to be a doormat, but to stand up in the face of change, in the face of fear, and say, no, this is not loving. What's the loving place? And we demand to see that and experience that now. So yeah, that's where that song came from.
And no one can move a crowd like you with this song. It's amazing. I've been at many of your live performances, and the love that's there in the crowd is amazing to watch live. And I was really hoping, because so many people have asked, if you would bless us with this amazing song today. How do you feel about that?
Sure, I can do that. I can play it live for you. And it's a little different when you play it solo compared to going in a big garden, but there's nothing more fun than playing it for a big audience and everybody's sitting there singing along, so yeah. And before I play this, it's like one of the things I'd like to tell the people out there, and it's very important when you think in terms of choice, that if you're choosing love in your life, and you're really choosing to love and honor yourself and your spirit and your soul, understand that anything unlike love within you is going to rise up, to be confronted, to be transformed and healed. So you're going to look at your darkest, deepest secrets, shadows, fears, whatever that is. And that was very true for me. So, part of the thing about choosing love, it's not just about sort of pie in the sky, enlightenment, I'm choosing love now. No, this is about understanding that you're going to be brought into your darkest shadows, because that's what needs to be transformed in order to uplift consciousness. And I always like to tell people, some people are just freaked out about maybe looking at areas in their life that they've had lots of trauma and hurt, like, sexual abuse or, some sort of trauma. And I tell people this, I said, it didn't kill you to get you to this point. So it's not gonna kill you to go ahead and look at it again. And choosing love will take us into those dark places so that we can heal it, because when we get the gift of it, then that uplifts us, our ability to be with people in a more loving way. You know what I mean? You've heard the concept of the wounded healers. A lot of us got creamed coming into the planet.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of us have had to overcome great hurts. But as a result, we've been able to show up for other people in ways that help the collective now. So again, when you think in terms of choosing love, understand that it's a moment-to-moment choice. And how do you love yourself even in your darkest times? How do you handle yourself through the hurt? And that's what we're beginning to learn how to do. Go ahead.
Music is such an automatic for that. And your music has a certain higher frequency that I've noticed. I am a sound freak. Mm-hmm. And I'm picky about my music because I'm picky about everything that resonates or doesn't. And when things resonate, you want more of that. And music is such an automatic go-to. So pay attention to your music. Pay attention to what's in your surroundings is my biggest advice to you guys about that. Frequency management, really choosing your frequency in every moment. And it's not to say, as Shawn put so clearly, you don't want to be a doormat. You want to honor your boundaries and your self-love. But choosing your frequency is so important. You can choose in every moment, whether you're going to be angry. Shame is a horrible thing that's going through the human conscious collective right now, that's creating a lot of these, at least from my perspective as a channel, shame and fear and anger and disempowerment, feeling that helplessness and powerlessness are negative beliefs that create more of the same. But when you can be observant of yourself, and as opposed to going into a negative emotional reaction, go into something as quick and easy as listening to this song, for instance, that is a frequency booster. Right away, you're choosing love in that moment. So it doesn't have to be such a thought thing where you say, oh no, I can't love myself because of my wounds. And because I know that's hard with everything you've been through. Many of you watching have had tremendous traumas that it's valid. It's understandable that you're going to feel that self-love is not automatic for you. But when you choose your frequency in the moment by listening to something amazing like this, that brings you into love frequency, whether you're ready or not, it can be a very powerful tool.
Well, it's part of the choice. It's like you can, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those little choices I was telling you about. I'm feeling like hell right at the moment. Let me pop this little music on to help me lift my spirit up, Mm-hmm. It's a tool, and this is another piece that I'm championing in my own career. It's like, as artisans in the world, what kind of frequency of music are we putting out into the world? Absolutely. You know what I mean? I'm very clear about putting messages of healing out into the world, But, music has been so incredibly bastardized, to inflict pain and suffering, And there's also a place for music to purge with, you know what I mean? It's like I did a record one time where I hit a drum, and just screamed, because it was like I was so pissed off. I just needed to get it out. Well, with a drum, that's a really good thing to do.
I've got to listen to that. Now I've got to hear that, Shawn, some other time.
Yeah, we can talk about that another time. But I mean, it's artful, but it's very, very intense, you know. And that's again, that's so. So yeah, this is. So let's play "I Choose Love" and sing along out there if you're in Radioland. I can see laughter, I can see tears. I see a choice, love or fear. So what do you choose? I can see peace, I can see wars. I can see sunshine, I can see a storm. So what do you choose? Now I choose to live with freedom flying from my heart where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love. I choose love. I can see Keisha. I messed it up there. Hold on a second. I can see Sharon, or I can see greed. I can see caring of poverty. So what do you choose? And I can see gardens, or I can see bombs. I can see life or death coming on strong. So what do you choose? Now I choose to live with freedom flying from my heart where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love. I choose love. Blessed is healing, darkness dying. I see us dawning as a world united. So what do you choose? Love or fear? Oh, we choose. Now I choose to live with freedom flying from my heart where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world I choose to feel the song united in the strength that wins as I'm by. I choose love. 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 How about you guys out there? I choose love. And oh, I choose love.
Oh, thank you so much. I'd clap, but I have broken my wrist, so you get the clap.
Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's first thing in the morning, Shawn Gallaway singing I Choose Love, you know.
That was amazing. Let's talk. Do you have time to talk about some conscious ways to choose love? There's a lot going on in our society, and we just have had some horrible things happen collectively, if you want to perceive them that way, or we could perceive them as opportunities to choose something different. What's your advice on making love more of an automatic choice?
Well, first of all, there's you know, it begins with self-love and what I would call a critical care list. It's like, what are the things that are going to keep you centered in your heart, that you can do for yourself? You know, part of my challenge in life has been with depression. I struggled years with it. And, you know, artisans have that tendency anyway. But for me, it was like I had to figure out 15 different ways to get out of the hole, you know. So, you know, what I eat has to be very clean. I had to get really clear on what was like, what foods, you know, GMO foods don't work for me.
What do you eat?
I mean, I eat a lot of organic foods, you know, foods that are, you know, I eat proteins that are hopefully well loved before they're, you know, they come to market. I eat very little dairy. You know, grains are not good for me. You know, my body type, sugar is a killer for me. You know, every now and again, you know, my motto is 80-20. You know, if you do 80% great and 20% every now you get off the wagon, that's kind and loving for me, you know. So that's one thing. Exercise, energy management. It's like, you know, I tell people this, it's like we're energetic beings, like we're physical beings. If you don't take a shower for your physical body, you stink. Well, it's the same thing with your energetic body. If you're not doing some deep breathing and cleansing your auric field, you collect a lot of soot and then you get depressed. I get depressed. So I've had a very strong discipline over the years of cleaning my energy field every day, doing chakra clearings, toning. That's one thing. The other thing is what are you passionate about in your life? What are your true gifts? If you're not really following your true gifts, and you know when you're in your true gift when you're doing it and you lose all track of time. Like for me, playing music, writing and creating things. You know, I'm also a visual artist, and you know, I came to that when I was 33 years old. It was a huge way for me to undo depression. I started painting depression. I painted it. And for me, it was like, that was my way of loving it. And some of the pictures they were just very intense, but I stepped away from it and I said, oh, you mean I can actually use this energy, this emotion of depression, this experience of depression to be artful with. And it lifted. So when I find myself in kind of a rut, I'll paint. I'll move energy that way. Exercise, physical exercise, emotional exercise, mental exercise, spiritual exercise. You got to stay in shape. You know, these are all critical self-care things. What are your boundaries, you know? And in boundaries, I mean, you know, I like to use the word honor. And honor, how am I loving myself without hurting you? And how am I loving you without hurting me? That's true honor. So I'm conscious of the collective and conscious of my own place in the collective. If it's not loving, then in some ways it's not, there's still something that needs to be looked at there. So healthy boundaries, being able to speak my truth is another one. This is how I feel about this situation when this happened, or this is what I feel in my heart that I know I need to do for myself in order to be, you know, within this group or within this relationship. You know, it's like, you know, learning how to speak up for what my heart knows is my truth, you know, and you know, and you had mentioned shame earlier, and I think shame is probably one of the hardest things in the world to clear. And I loved what the definition, Brene Brown, I think that's her name. You know, I love how she really differentiates between guilt and shame, and where shame is the thought that something's actually wrong with me.
Yeah.
You know, and then guilt being there's something wrong with my behavior.
Yes.
You know, and I would encourage people to look at the institutions that you've been involved with and look at where your conditioning of shame has come from.
Yes.
For example, my experience is I grew up in Catholicism, you know, and at a time where, you know, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, you know, you get a black mark on your soul and there's something wrong with you. You came into the world with a mark on your soul, stuff like that, that, you know, as a young infant or a little kid, those are little fears that are rooted in the consciousness that can actually, you know, as we get older, be very challenging to deal with. If there's something wrong with me, then why am I going to show up in the world in a positive, loving way? Because I'm always going to be screwed. You know what I mean? So I encourage people to take a look at where your conditioning came from related to your shame. The truth is that you're an incredible, gorgeous, amazing being. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing ever was, nothing ever will be. And, you know, and you've believed in something that's not truth. So you can take your power back and give it back and have it cleansed and, you know, reprogrammed. So that's part about choosing love too. It's like, what's the conditioning I grew up in and how do I change it? That's the hero's journey to become more loving, you know? So what's my bliss and am I following it? You know, those are all things that I've had to really, you know, do and stay true to my calling, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does, especially about religion and the concept of being born into sin. And my perspective of that is just, you know, think about the true definition of sin. You know, look it up. It means to miss the mark.
Miss the mark, right?
What does that really mean in terms of guilt? I agree with your thoughts on guilt versus shame. Guilt simply means, okay, you missed the mark on something. Let's take a look at a reactive behavior versus a loving, responsive one, because from my teachings, there's a difference between a response and a reaction. And in a response, it's coming from your divine heart center. In a reaction, your ego steps in because you feel defensive or you feel offensive or you feel something that's causing you to need attention within.
And it's important to clarify it's your fearful ego that's stepping in because, you know, the ego is getting a bad rap in a lot of ways.
It is. Yeah.
So if we didn't have an ego, we'd be like boneless chicken. Remember that? Right. The boneless chicken farm, we'd all be like this, you know, we wouldn't be able to move or anything, you know, you have to have it, you know, and I always loved I learned years ago that the definition of the ego, it's the part of the mind that creates.
Yeah.
So if you're feeding it love, then you're going to create loving, you know, and if you're feeding it fear, then that's what you're going to create.
Yes. And
does that make sense? I think it's important to clarify. I say that everywhere. It's really important to clarify that you have to have an ego in order to be a human being, you know?
Yeah.
So
I
love.
believe in the importance of ego, and I believe there's a difference between ego coming up in a way that you react and respond, and
Yeah.
ego, your creative drive. We're all prime creators. There's God within, and everything that we're seeing is a reflection of what we are creating incessantly and infinitely, and it doesn't end. So we're here to create. We're not here, at least from my perspective, to squash the ego or say we don't need an ego. It's, while it's important to be humble, there's and earnest in your desires, it doesn't mean that you can't have confidence and drive and passion and power and to create as a musician, or in my case, a channel, or whatever you're doing. You're here to create this beautiful expression and to expand therefrom. So I agree with you. And but I just feel like there's this, I loved what you said about guilt and shame. Shame in my expression and in my perceptions and teachings, I have learned very quickly that shame is incredibly useless. It is the most useless emotion I have ever come across in the whole gambit of human expression.
And it's also one of the hardest to clear when it's rooted in there. And I'm also an energetic healer. And one of the ways that I see shame, it's like a black tar
Yeah.
that's in the energetic field, and it's very sticky. And it's
Yes,
like,
and you paint it in one of your
right.
paint your heart out.
Right. And
Also
so,
paints and teaches about how to express yourself and energetically clear through your paint. And he's a great frequency artist. If you've seen his site over at ShawnGallaway.com, it's not just music. You'll see loads and loads of expressions of healing paintings that he's gone through. And his Paint Your Heart Out events are amazing. I've personally been to one. And it was so amazing because I could watch people express and the stuff that comes up when you're in your prime creator space. And when you're painting, your inner child comes out. I had no idea what was going to happen. I'm like, okay, I'm going to paint some trees and a mountain. Okay, well, maybe I'm going to paint some infinity symbols. Okay, so I started doing that. And then I'm like, I'm kind of mad. I want to like splash these infinity symbols. Like stuff was coming up,
yeah.
It was fun.
And that's the importance of the arts. You know what I mean? A lot of people think that especially in school systems these days, it's like, and the arts are the first to go, but that's the ticket to the soul and the heart, and that's where we balance off. And the arts, you don't have to be a Rembrandt or a Picasso to be involved in the art process from a place of soul language where, you give yourself permission to purge or to put something on paper, and then there's a language to it. You can begin to understand, oh, I didn't realize I was feeling that way about that situation, and this is a direct message from my heart and soul that I'm holding some energy about this, and I need to look into it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, that's to me, it's the arts are as important as mathematics,
Yeah.
in learning how to function in the world that we live in. And it's the one thing that gets, well, you think in terms of I choose love, and love being heart. That's the heart. And it's like, in our culture, people are scared to death of their emotions. And the thing is that they're our guidance system. That's when we know when we're missing the mark, like you said before. It's our way of looking at ourselves and saying, okay, if I'm missing the mark, how do I rebalance to get back to my true self,
Yeah.
And a lot of these institutions in our days that have been built on structures of fear don't want us coming back to our heart. There's a subtle message underneath it saying that's not, we need to control you. And I think that we're really looking at mass control, especially when you did that piece that you were talking about, where you used the I Choose Love song recently, when you were talking to the man who did the shooting. And this is another piece about choosing love. I think that's really important to say right at the moment. It's like, in the horrors of these things, these mass shootings that are happening everywhere, it's like, how do we love these people anyway? You know what I mean? In other words, it's like, some people are saying we should put them all in a move them to a place on the planet where they can't hurt anybody and all that and everything. That may be okay for a brief while, but for the longer pieces, it's like, How do we embrace them? How do we help them heal? Because obviously they're speaking for the masses in some way of like saying, you've heard that expression where, if someone really acts out in a poor way, it's a call for love. The Course of Miracles stuff says stuff like that. So it's like, all right, so we're getting calls for love immensely everywhere. When are we going to start bringing love to the situation instead of the war against terrorism or the war against drugs? It's like, well, how do we bring love to the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not going to always be an automatic right away. That's okay. Especially, if you feel there's been harm involved, if you've personally been involved, if you know someone who's been involved. So many people said to me after 9/11, how can you send love, to terrorists? I just lost my child. I just lost this. And what if it was your child? And, and I realized how difficult that is. And yes, that is exactly what I'm asking you to do. It really is.
And the other thing about that is that our culture has forgotten how to grieve. And when you properly grieve, it's okay to be really angry and feel like you want to, lash out at these people that have wounded you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But that
That's
doesn't,
valid.
ultimately, you have to honor those emotions. And I think in culture right now, we have to honor the emotions of anger and depression and frustration with these kind of acts of violence and anger and rage.
Yes.
And again, people
because it's helping the conscious collective. It really is, because we have felt disempowered as a conscious collective for so long, and we are standing in our power now. And the way to stand in your power is to validate how you feel. But when it becomes harm, that can be an interesting expression. And it's honoring your frequency while also understanding that there is a love that's deeper than we can possibly logically grasp. We can't stand in the mind of someone who harms and understand that if we're not at that frequency. But there is something that we can connect to, and that is that person's pain, that person's loss, that person's grief. What could he have imaginally been feeling? What could the alleged shooter, the alleged this, the alleged terrorist. And I say alleged because we don't really know what's going on. And we may not get into that today. You've seen my video, but that matters not. What matters is, if you perceive someone's done harm, can you look deeper than your minds with it?
And now we're looking, and now we're being asked as light workers to look at the collective of that. It's just not him. He's the representative, because there's a shooter like that lives in all of us.
Yes.
And can we love that part of our consciousness, so that we don't become that? You know what I mean? So, it's a very difficult challenge to be able to say that, wow, that lives in me. Mother Teresa said it best. It's like someone asked her once, it's like, why do you do what you do? And she said, one of the reasons she said, it's because there's the Hitler that lived inside of me. And it's like, I can choose to do that, or I can choose to be the loving, kind woman that I am. We all have that's the realm of duality that we live in. And again, it comes back to the choice, love or fear. But if you're not even aware that you have that choice, then you react out. You know what I mean? And that's what we're seeing, a lot of reaction. In our culture, I think we've lost the ability how to really stop and really take something to heart. We've become an entitled culture where we want things right now. It's like, well, that's not the nature of the universe. The nature of the universe is masculine and feminine. You take an in breath and you stop, and you take an out breath and you take action. It's like, it can be that simple. And how do we do that anymore? So,
we choose love in our every action. What does love mean to you? Love might be stop, I'm angry, validate, grieve. When I was a kid and I was angry, my mom would say, go throw an egg at the fence. And she'd bring maybe 3 dozen, because that's how angry I was. Exactly. And our fence constantly having problems keeping the paint on it. But that was what I needed to do.
Absolutely. And what a great gift she gave you. Imagine if we taught people, I think there should be like a room in every corporate, building that's the punching bag room. You go in there and you punch it out. It's like, if you don't, it'll show up sideways in somewhere in your life. Yeah. And I think that's to the point where, okay, how do we manage our emotion? And, And again, coming back to grieving though, grieving and forgiveness it's a process,
Yes.
and it can be lengthy for some people.
True.
And understanding everybody grieves in their own way. It's unique. And that's important to remember. And the whole range of emotion, deep tears, gut wrenching, retching tears, deep anger, taking a bat and beating something kind of anger, all of that is, it's, however, whatever works for you, in that way to let all that out. The challenge that I've seen with this and from my own experience is that having not had access to all my emotions as a man, and then coming into them and oh my God, it was like a volcano. I mean, there was so much depth of feeling in me about everything. And, but I went from not having them at all to pitching a tent in them. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I ended up being ruled by my emotions. And it's like, I had to come back to center from that too. So it's like,
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I was
Sure.
just talking about that on my live stream yesterday, or the day before, rather. We can become addicted to the disempowering emotions that come up during the grief. And then we go through the dark night of the soul in a way that that's what we know. And it completely trains your brain to stay in it. That the ego says, oh, that's safe. That's something that we know. And the ego, we do what we know. Okay, so what's your advice on that to our followers about like how to get out of the addiction to the grief when you don't really know a higher frequency to go to, because the grief has been there for so long and it's what you know?
Yeah. And that's the big key words. That's what you know. And you've defined yourself, or I've defined myself through that emotion. So
Yeah.
a couple of things. One is, there's some really great techniques to you always have to honor the emotion. In other words, I have to be honest with myself and say, yes, I'm feeling really angry right now. What am I afraid of? Because it's
Yeah.
always rooted in fear. What's the fear? The conditioning, the question, okay. And you can tap, you can. So in other words, you don't have to go hit a bat and beat something up for a half an hour. You can say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, I feel angry. Well, then feel really angry. And if you're into longer than 3 minutes, then you might be indulging.
Yeah.
And if you get into
Yeah.
indulging, you create that circle of you're feeding now the negativity of that experience with an overabundance of emotion.
True. And I noticed that I watch you noticing, because I see energy too in the way that I've noticed you seeing energy. And when I originally started my work, they used to call me the aura reader. So if you go to my website, it's still aurareader.com for that reason, because that's my heart. That's where I started, was observing humanity's energy. And have you seen this too? That when people are going through grief, that it's a perpetual cloud of energy that does not lift. And it would be so helpful if for a moment you listen to a song like I Choose Love, or you do some toning. In my personal practice, it's the Shabad. I really love the sacred nature of some of these languages, and chanting and bhakti over and over and over again. And my ego doesn't want to do it. My fear-based, not arrogance-based ego, my fear-based ego says, oh, you might want to sit with this a little bit more this morning. You don't want to do your Shabbat this morning. You don't want to sing something 108 times. And I just do it anyway. And I go, okay, I love you, ego. I love you, inner child. I have a specific technique that I call the heart connection process. And I put my hand over my heart and I'll say, I am completely here with you right now. I give you permission to feel, accept, and if or when necessary, release that which no longer serves you. And then I think about what does serve me. And then I say, I give you permission to feel and accept what does serve you. And then I'll ask myself, what color is that emotion that I want to feel that would serve me? And believe you me, it's not always love. It's not always bliss or celebration. Sometimes it's power. Sometimes it's liberation. Sometimes it's something that feels like a moving agitation, even. It's not always positive, but it's not despair or
Yeah.
isolation.
It's like I would call that sacred anger sometimes. It's like, the healthy way to use anger is to propel yourself into something that is kind and loving for yourself. You know, damn it, I'm going to get off of my butt and get this done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Motivated action.
Yeah, in the men's world, we call that the warrior energy. It's like getting your warrior up so that you can, you know, accomplish and maintain the boundaries and accomplish the goals that you want to complete for yourself that, you know, are kind and loving. So, but this is really interesting because as an artist, and I look at this as where spirituality is going, you know, we're moving from a lot of collective conditioning, like old religious beliefs and values, which is good, into an individual, what I would call, you're creating your own palette for your own spirituality. We have so many different ways, things to choose from anymore. And it's like trying on new clothes. We're trying, you know, a little bit from Catholicism, a little bit from Buddhism, a little bit from yoga, you know, a little bit of our own just deep connection with source, you know, whatever it is you want to call it. And we paint our own pictures. What you were doing was painting your own picture of how you stay centered in your heart so that you can be kind and loving to yourself and the world. And there's no rights or wrongs. It's just the way that you do it. And in that place, you're maintaining your cog in the wheel or your place in the pod, which benefits everyone. So again, I come back to harm. Paint your picture. How do you want to paint your critical care list so that you can, you know, function in a loving way in the world, you know? And it's not easy right now. We're being bombarded and uprooting structures that have been on this planet for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. You know, and does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
It does in the Human Conscious Collective, because the biggest human conscious collective problem right now, if you want to call it that, would be fear. And then on top of that, there's shame. I've noticed shame is right there because they work hand in hand. One begets the other, if you will. So when you ask yourself, well, why do I want to send love if I feel that I'm ashamed of myself? Or why do I want to send love to, you know, an alleged terrorist? Or why do I want to do that? Well, why not? Wouldn't you, if you feel that you are allegedly sinning, if you feel that you are unworthy, if you feel that you are shamed or ashamed, wouldn't that be where wouldn't that be where the love and forgiveness would go first? Whether it be towards yourself or others. I feel like the shooter in Las Vegas needs our love and forgiveness in ways that we need our love and forgiveness. So that's the only way to get through, to integrate the collective fear and shame, is to send love and forgiveness. And that breeds grace, which is a powerful, powerful tool. And the paradigms of religion, the paradigms of politics that have been instilled. I mean, from the moment we took our first breaths, it was, you know, oh, please don't cry. That's going to irritate someone. Oh, you know, you better go to church, or you're a bad boy or a bad girl. Or, you know, in school, it's learn this because that's the right thing to do, and this is the wrong thing to do. So duality has been breathed into your cultures and systems since the moment you took your first breath.
And those
so
structures,
it's hard to come.
And those structures are collapsing right now.
Yes, they are.
You know,
I've noticed.
And something else that you said that was interesting that I would respond to, it's like, how many people in our own lives have we shot down through our reaction or our arrogance or our ignorance or our own fear? Yeah. You know, when you think of somebody taking out a whole lot of people, that's the part when I'm saying, oh, have I ever done that to someone? And again, it's totally out of unconsciousness, basically. And the whole trip about coming onto this planet is about becoming more conscious, more aware of how am I, you know, responding or reacting to the challenges that life, you know, present me with. Some of those we have control of, but some of them subconscious. Some of them it's like, wow, how in the world did I get myself into this position, and how am I going to get out of this in a way without hurting myself or a bunch of other people, you know? So, you know, there's a mystery in everything. And that's the one thing I tell everybody too. It's like, you know what, there's no absolutes other than love itself, in my opinion, you know, and it's like, we don't know the bigger picture. And there is a part of us that wants to know, but you know what, the truth is that there's always a mystery. We don't know. You know, I don't know if that situation in Las Vegas was, you know, maybe that in some way is going to help the collective in a way that we have no idea to heal with. And perhaps it will. Much like 9/11, well, what can we create from 9/11? I Choose Love, the song that's helped, lots and lots, well, millions of people have seen that now, you know. So, it's carve a space out for the mystery too. Sometimes we just don't know. And it's okay to sit in that place of the void and say, okay, can I breathe through this until I get, that place of direction where, okay, just take that step. Maybe right now the most loving thing to do is turn off the TV, step outside and feel my feet on the grass, and I am alive, and which comes back to another thing. It's like when we are in this fire, in this transformational process, you got to be able to carve, this is my experience, you got to be able to carve out a space for joy, and the way that joy has come to my life is when I get through one of these things and I really get to the root of a challenge and understand the gift that it gave me to make my consciousness grow and expand, then I can have a laugh about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But can we put it in a little box every now and again and say, all right, I'm going to put you over there because I really need to have a good laugh right at the moment, Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that. And laughter is as healing and joyful is as healing as actually getting into the tears or into the energy of purging. And it's like, can we come back to laughter with it, And sometimes that's hard in the face of these absolutely horrendous acts of violence. But you know what? We have to be able to put it in a little box and say, okay, I'll come back to you in 5 minutes. Right now, I'm just going to breathe in the light of the universe and feel joy. I'm alive, connect with my cells, whatever. So does that make sense?
It really does. And that's something that I observe when I observe some of the greatest masters on earth and I just kind of watch. And Gandhi, for instance, the Dalai Lama, that's a really good example. You just watch him. It's not that he is in this incessant blissful state perpetually. What I've observed in him is that it appears that he can very quickly transmute something and integrate something. And I can see him, I can feel him sometimes get a little angry, a little frustrated. And then I feel him breathe. I feel him connect to his breath. I feel him, command his power, put his feet on the ground, remember his divinity. And I feel him go straight into grace. Like immediately he feels, he validates. He's like, oh, there's something. That's something. Okay. And I'm going to lift that up. And then on his next breath in, he's already transmuting and I see his entire auric field changing. Now those are masters. We can't always do it that quickly, but it's wonderful to be inspired by him. And we can do that. I think that's the ultimate goal in mastery, is to understand that we're here to live that gambit of emotions, not to repress and suppress, but to feel and understand that, like, he very quickly, when he goes into anger, I watch him and I read him and he's like, how can I use this? Where will this benefit? Where does this need to go? And it's straight up into higher consciousness right away. And I'm sure that took some practice and years of service and dedication.
Well, and also it starts with his choice to love.
Yeah.
He honors what he's felt. I'm feeling anger. I acknowledge it. Now, how can I use this to serve love?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I've watched him do it.
Yeah. Amazing. He's amazing.
And he teaches us, and I've seen him completely honor his own boundaries as well in the midst of people. And if he feels a little bit too much, I bless you. And he turns around and walks away. And I'm like, did you just walk away from that person? But he sent love while he was doing it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. He's a wonderful example of choosing love and walking the talk, Yeah.
And you are. And I really honor you and your music and what you are putting out there as a light worker, and not just your music, but everything that you're bringing to this world. And I want to talk about where you're going with I Choose Love and where you're going next with your music and your healing work.
Well, I Choose Love, it's a series of 15 songs. And it tells my healing journey from the calling all the way to coming into conscious awareness of source, you know, and the steps through that journey. And I did an art and music. There's a little book that I've compiled called I Choose Love. That's an art book. It has the songs and the lyrics and the stories of the song in it. And you can order it on my website. Just send me an email and you want a copy of the book. And that's ShawnGallaway.com. So, but I've also written this into a screenplay with my friend Joanne McKnight. And so we're looking to produce a film that's going to take people. It's a community. It's a group of 8 men and 4 men, 4 women, all from different racially diverse cultures, and they all have their challenge. You know, from sexual abuse to cancer, and they're all go down the rabbit hole together. Basically, they choose love, and they go through the healing process and support each other in what they have to confront in order to heal that from their own perspective. And then the collective perspective. So it's all the music that's in the I Choose Love CD is going to be in the film. So that's one big project that I'm working on. That I think that's probably my biggest legacy piece would be that, and to really give people a really clear look about this is what you go through in order to really heal at the deeper levels, you know. And it's not just about popping a pill and saying it's fixed. This is about getting into the guts of it, you know, and sometimes it's not pretty and outrageously hilarious and joyful at times. So that's the big one. I'm working on another new record. I just wrote a song and recorded it called The Light Has Won. And I think you heard it the last concert you came and saw.
It is.
You know, and it's a song about giving people hope that, you know what, indeed the war is over, the light has won, and we're just cleaning out the vestiges of that in our world right now, and we are going to have a world of peace. And this song celebrates that in a very heartful way. So, and songs also related to that from my own journey. So, you know, I continue to paint pictures and I actually have this little irreverent side of me, and we're putting together a little puppet show around all that, which is kind of hilarious in a different way. Talk about throwing eggs at a fence. This is a way to do it, you know, have puppets, you know, throw absurdities out there and laugh about it. You know, that's kind of fun. So yeah, I mean, I continue in the arts and I do workshops. One of the things I really love doing right now is assisting people in understanding the divine and masculine and feminine dance, you know, and understanding the difference between gender, you know, which men are programmed one way or hardwired, I would say, and women are hardwired another way. And again, they're generalities, but a lot of times it's very helpful when we're in relationships to understand that when you understand the gender ways that women process and the way men process are different. And the way we've been conditioned is different, you know. So we look at how the patriarchal conditioning has distorted those conditionings, you know, and come back to the masculine and feminine, which is the energy that lives in both men and women. And as we're climbing the ascension ladder, it's critical to be able to hold consciousness at the, you know, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th dimensions, to be able to have your masculine and feminine energy in balance.
Yes.
So that you're not fighting an internal war. Because a lot of us have been fighting, me specifically, I have had to overcome that internal war between the masculine and the feminine in order to come back into harmony and balance so that I could step up the ladder and be able to coach people on that, you know. It's very important. You know? So those are the things I'm working on now.
Yeah. And do you know when you'll be doing your next the Divine Masculine and Feminine Dance workshop?
I do not have anything on the books right at the moment. Other than in Australia not this November, but the following November, we're going to do a 5-city tour in Australia with that. I do not have anything booked for that, right? I just finished a 6-month tour with doing this, and I don't know what's next, but I do have a dolphin trip that I'm giving. Are you sold out on that yet? I have 2 spots left on the first week, and that's February 23rd through March 3rd. And it is, you talk about play. swimming with a pod of 150 dolphins out in the wild is just an enormous bucket list experience. If you have any inkling of doing this, we have an absolute blast and we'd love to have you. So you can contact me through my website on that as well. It's called, we call it Dolphin Tune. I teach songwriting and we do art, and then we go swim with wild dolphins and take a trip to the volcano. It's amazing.
Yeah, that really, for especially so many of my crowd that have an attachment to and a connection to Atlantis and Lemuria times. And that's a big place to be, to just sort of activate your essence in a very positive way and talk about getting through dark night of the soul. That'll do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if you have more than one, like I've had, you know, you go back. You know?
Right. I just love what you're giving back to society. And I just want to take a moment to thank you and honor you. I have so much gratitude for your essence on this planet, Shawn, and I support you. And if I can support you further in any way, please let me and my team know. But yeah, we can find I Choose Love, probably the whole album, I think on iTunes as well, right?
It's all over the digital outlets, Spotify, all of them, you know, Rumblefish. If you want to support me, the best way to do it is get it off of my website from cdbaby.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have several records out, you know, they're all very healing in their nature. Love Songs for the Soul is especially tender. So yeah, ShawnGallaway.com, and that's ShawnGallaway.com.
Yeah, he's not a one-hit wonder, guys. I have listened to the entirety of I Choose Love probably more times than I have any other album. And the calling is beautifully powerful. It is such a native soul thing too. It like really calls to your true expression and your natural state of divinity. It is just, when you listen to that, it's equally as powerful, is what I'm going to say, because that's how I Choose Love starts, is with the song, The Calling. And it's like a call to your own essence. It's like, wait a minute here, I'm an empowered being. And then he sings, you'll see what I'm talking about when you hear it, and then he calls like to himself. And it's so powerful. I play it a lot in the car, you know, because I have your CD, and I played it. I recently lost it and had to get another one, so I put it in the car, and my 5-year-old had never heard it. So it went to The Calling, and you know, from the night that she started singing, she was like,
oh, the kids love that record. They remember it. They remember.
Again. You know, so she's sitting back there in her car seat, you know, dancing at the top of her lungs, The Calling, and she loves you too.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, kids love that record. You know, it's really, they remember.
Yeah, they do. And every time we get in the car now, she's like, "Are we doing the Calling?" and we like hold on our windows. My 15-year-old Eris, we don't care.
That's great. That's great.
So thanks for being there today. I was beautiful. I love what you're bringing. And we need this right now. We do right now. Please keep up where I look forward to seeing more of what's come on your new album. Love Wins. That's the name of it.
Your audio is a little muddy. I didn't quite get. Did you ask me when the next record would be done? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, let me reset. Is that reset now? Are we good?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, so yeah, sometimes my energy overfloods stuff. I was asking, when do you think that Love Wins is going to come out? Is that the name of it?
The Light Has Won.
The Light Has Won, yeah.
Well, boy, I really don't know. Probably in the spring. I would like to think to sometime in the spring, early summer next year. We may put it out as a single.
Okay.
The Light Has Won, because it's such a powerful song. So I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I'm not really, but it, you know, and also as an artist, it's like, you know, recording it can be expensive. So I'm actively seeking patronage to say, who wants to play? Yeah. I've got another record I'm going to do, and that's the way I've been able to keep going over the years, is by patronage, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Until it takes off and people support it enough, and then whatever. So yeah, so that's the other thing. If you're ever interested in sponsoring a song, I'm certainly will be happy to speak with you about that.
You wrote an amazing song for someone I know lately. Her name is Bonnie. She goes by Grace, and he wrote an amazing song called Grace on Fire. I wish there was a way that that could be shared because it was just fabulous. So the song sponsorship is amazing. Don't you actually write a song like you do your soul's research on the person and write a song for them?
Yep, I do theme songs for people. I've done them for organizations, authors, individuals. Yeah, and it's a great lot of fun to do that. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a CD called Inspired, and that's I think there's 12 or 13 theme songs that I did for different people in the last couple of years that are on that. So I love doing that. That's so much fun to take someone's message and put it into a
I'm
radio.
so on
Yeah,
it.
love to do that for people. Yeah.
I'm so
Well,
on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a good one for your website to have your own song and you can sell it and, and sponsor your own, foundation that way. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We need one for sure.
That'd be
All
great.
right. Well, thanks for having us. I'm going to turn YouTube Live off at this time and thank all of you for being here with the lovely Shawn Gallaway. You can find him at ShawnGallaway.com,
AY.
ShawnGallaway. Okay, I want to get it right.
Awesome.
Galloway.com.
You can
Okay.
go to ichooselove.org as well. I think that's
Yeah.
linked up to it as well.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to stop our stream now. Thanks for being with us.